Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, a podcast that transcends the typical personal development journey. You're not new to this. You've read the books, attended the seminars, and perhaps even tried various coaching programs, yet something still feels amiss. Elon and Guy have over 2 decades of relentless searching and $1 million invested in their personal growth quest. Here's the revelation. You're not missing anything. You're not even behind. You might have just been searching in the wrong places. In each episode, we'll uncover the most effective, straightforward practices that have profoundly impacted our lives and the tens of thousands of our clients from all over the world. This is about real, sustainable results for those dedicated to their personal and spiritual growth. So get ready to explore and enjoy the show.
All have kind of like open windows in our systems, and then there are just things that the system will not look at. Like it will avoid it, it will turn away from it. And so I like to think of healing as like an expansion of your willingness, of like the system's willingness to have as many experiences as possible. If you've been to our formerly named intuitive mind events, I talk about it as the proliferation of experiences, the proliferation and expansion of experiences, because there's no edge to an experience that a human being can have, right? But there is an edge to the experience that we're willing to have. You know what I mean? Like some of us will happily jump out of a plane for the thrill of it. Some of us think that's the craziest fucking thing ever to do in the world. Like, why would you ever risk your life that way? Even if you're a high risk person, some people might not do that, right? That's at the physical level, but you want to start kind of taking that in and realizing like the emotional level and even deeper the energetic level. There are like certain sensations in the body that to the mind and to the body have been programmed as like this is something to avoid. That's what trauma feels like. I don't want to go there, right? And so the question you want to ask yourself is that trauma really, or is that just like an interpersonal experience? Like somebody could be put, for example, we could take 2 people and put them into a very high pressure situation. Could be business, could be familial, could be physical stress, right? Whatever it might be. One person might thrill at pressure. We normally call those people athletes, because they're like phenomenal at, usually providing like high level, whatever it is that they do at a high level under severe pressure where like other people would not just be able to act that way at all in that. So it's like, for all of us, there's a place in our systems that the awareness will just turn out. And if I could just share from my experience, like I have a teacher I've been working with for almost 9 years now, amazing human being. I can't call anyone enlightened, but one of the more enlightened human beings I've ever met. And I remember sitting with him in these practices, same stuff that you guys are doing, maybe a little bit more intense than a mini, kind of like hour and a half, 2 hour kind of sits that we do together. And I remember going through an experience with him and he was like, "Oh, that was cool." And I said, "What's cool?" He goes, "That was the first time that we've sat together and you went into like a response. You could call it a trauma response if you want, a response. And the awareness didn't look out, it looked in. Like he can track that. So he was like, it's the first time I saw you turn into it. Usually it's like, usually something happens and the system goes, like it gets spooked first, right? So when you go, like where does your awareness go? It goes out of the body usually, or it finds like a hiding spot, but it's some kind of avoidance pattern. It like turns away from the experience. And so it takes stability, right? It takes like building this foundation of trust in your system and sitting with other people and like learning about co-regulation, learning about support, learning about safe bonding. And I don't mean that psychologically. I mean like your body has to like relearn these patterns that were never given to it. And as we do that over a period of time, the awareness kind of builds this confidence. And then instead of having an avoidance pattern, it's like a being with instead. It turns in and it watches. Okay. So regardless of how much work you do, again, I can only say that from, like almost 9 years of doing this work now, of this particular work, 23 years of doing complete work. There's going to be something that happens regardless of how much training you get that spooks the system and you're going to look out. You get that? Like even today, there's with all my training, there still could be experiences that hit my system, I'll pop out. Okay. And and over a period of time, this stuff will get really clear because like once you do so many reps, like everything else, it becomes intuitive. I'm sure some of you guys, sometimes we say stuff and you're like, how could they possibly know that about me or about the space? But it's like Tony Robbins likes to say, success leaves clues. The reality is like energy leaves clues also. There's like a way things feel, right? Like why does a mother see her child angry when they're like young? Like you say, hey, that's anger. Well, how would we know that? Well, the energy of anger. You know what anger feels like, what's in the space. The child may not be able to recognize that yet, but we point at it and the child recognizes, oh, this is what anger feels like. This is the result of anger in the space, yada yada and so forth. When you get into the subtle realms, there's all these like very definitive qualities that our consciousness can perceive. Okay. And so when you've played and you've investigated that stuff within yourself and you've explored those qualities over and over and over and over again, guess what? When people come into your space, there's like, again, I'm not saying this is 100% accurate, but there's like a great deal of intuition, right? That's like, oh, okay, I know that felt sense. The metaphor I would say is like, before people do personal development, it's like their carpet is really, really dirty. And as they do personal development, like, developmental work, healing it's not an act of adding things into yourself. It's not like layer more stuff on. It's actually the act of subtraction, right? So if we clean a carpet, what are we doing? Well, we're taking away the dirt. We're subtracting the dirt from the carpet. Before you know it, the carpet is whiter and whiter and whiter, cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And so guess what? When people come into your space with dirty boots on, you see it. Like, oh, shit. Yeah. I remember when I used to walk into this house with those dirty boots on, right? It's like, does that make sense? That's kind of how it feels to me. It's like, oh, dirty boots are here, this kind of thing. So, and it's not like you're dirty or anything like that. Please don't take it that way. I just mean it's like there's like a signature to it, and it feels familiar. And sometimes it's in the speaking patterns, sometimes it's in how people hold their body, sometimes it's in the energy they're imbuing, and oftentimes it's like all of it at the same time. Like it's like how many of you guys just know you're pretty intuitive, like you have a lot of like empathetic qualities. Like, explain that to me. How do you know what you know, but you're good at it, right? And people probably come to you for that skill set to get feedback from you. You probably give great pointers and stuff like that. And there's always room for improvement because at the end of the day, a lot of us still perceive, even if we're really good at what we do, from a place of distortion. Like I don't want you guys to think I've cleaned up all my distortions. I'm cleaning up my distortions every single day. I don't see this as an end game. I don't think there's a place I started. I don't think there's a place that I'm ending. I don't think I'm a master, but I'm in a state of mastery, and mastery is like that's a forever life game. It's a forever life game. Even somebody, after somebody becomes a black belt in any martial arts, do you know there's like way more black belts that come after that, right? Like there's way more, always. There's always more to learn. So what I love, what I really admire about people in general is anybody who's in the state of mastery, period. I don't care what you're mastering, even if it's an art form of any kind, because to me, healing is an art form. But like whether it's dance or whether it's painting or drawing or music, like something happens to us when we're on that journey. Would you guys agree? Like there's like a great deal of learning that happens that is a spiritual lesson. And it's like it's so interesting that everything is built this way. And I can offer two really good books on this if you're interested. It's like spiritual lessons are just literally woven into mastery. You will learn so much about yourself by just saying, "Hey, I love this thing and I want to get really good at it." And you'll realize that everything that is in the way of you becoming super proficient at it is all the same shit that always comes up in life. All the inadequacies, all the I'm not enough, all that I'm only good when I perform, like all these like kind of very normal conversations that we all subconsciously have show up. So if you're like two really, really good books on this, just to explore it. Robert Greene wrote a book called Mastery many years ago. Top 5 books till this day. Just mind-blowing book. There's a distinction I use from there to explain what we do too, which is like Mastery happens in stages. Nobody's a master right away, right? We all show up as a student. That's it. Can't skip that stage. We all want to be the master right away, but mastery is like mastery is a long game. Once you have the fundamentals down, you become a practitioner. And I'll just paraphrase what I think that is. To me, a practitioner is somebody who now has the foundation. They can generate the thing, but it's still not coming from their self-expression. They're using models to replicate from somebody else, right? So it would be like covering a song, not writing your own music, if that makes sense, right? The student is learning how to play the instrument. Once you know how to play the instrument, you can cover other people's music, but you're not generating it yourself. Mastery is where the wisdom is so deep at that point in time that it's being generated from your system as if it's coming from you, literally as if you're the source of it. Does that land? Right. And I don't know if that's what Robert says about it, but that's why I say about it. So student, practitioner, master. And so we're all on that ride. And so you got to look at where am I on this ride, right? Because at the end of the day, self is an initiation. Like mastery of self is an initiatory process. And it's not one thing, right? Like in our community, we deal with two layers of mastery, maybe more, but to simplify things, it's like the initiation and mastery of the mental state, right? And then we do like initiations and mastery of the energetic state. The reason I say more is because if you add mental into it and you add energetic into it, you're bound to hit both emotional and physical as well because they all blend together. So you're gonna kind of work them all together. And then there's also like spiritual, right? Like our spiritual initiation. In ancient times, these were very clearly defined, and people knew I'm in my physical initiation right now, right? Like I'm gonna go and do my vision quest. There was like a physical initiation that goes into that before that, and then there's like the spiritual component of that. And today, even to this day, if you go do like ayahuasca, if you're doing it in a traditional way, you're going to be asked before you drink that medicine to go do a physical initiation, which is called a dieta. It's a certain type of foods that you eat and don't eat at that time. And it's to basically clean the vessel before you go receive the medicine. But when you receive the medicine, your initiation is going to be energetic, emotional, mental, spiritual. Like it's going to be this whole, you know, vast opening. So hopefully that kind of lands with just giving you a vision of like what am I doing here? Like, and what is this path that I'm on? And here's the reality, you can take this path anywhere. And if you really want to master something, and again, I'm pulling this from a lot of different places right now. If you really want to master something, the first thing to do every time is to learn the specialized terminology. If I say that, do you guys know what that means, or should I define that further? Give me like a thumbs down, thumbs up if you know what that means. Okay. Is anybody shaky on that? Okay, thumbs down. So specialized terminology. Let me explain it this way. Um, let's see, specialized terminology. So let's say you wanted to become a doctor or an attorney. You're going to go to school. The first thing you're going to learn is specialized terminology. So for example, if two doctors speak to each other about, let's say, a person's health, they may use words that me and let's say Kristen are using to talk to each other, but the definition of those words would be wildly different in the backdrop of medicine or a doctor. Does that make sense? So language, when we're using specialized terminology, gives us access to something that people who don't know that specialized terminology do not have access to. The reason we all need attorneys is because we can't translate the linguistics, right, of that world. Like I read like here too, wherefore art thou? And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Shakespeare. Like I need to pay you to descramble my brain. And it's basically saying like, do you agree? Like that's what it means, right? So, and think about how much money we spend to go see people who have mastered specialized terminology. So the terminology is the gateway to really all mastery, right? Like here too, it's like our specialized terminology, nervous system regulation. Maybe not everyone knows what that means, but they probably have some inclinations. Mini is certainly a specialized terminology in our community, right? Stuff like that. So Like when I was doing a lot of personal development work, we had a lot of specialized terminology. A lot. Like, and we would call it distinctions, for example, right? Like a distinction is a specialized terminology. So if I was to talk to another person who had mastery in those specialized terminology, it makes our time and how we speak to each other extremely efficient because we don't have to explain things to each other. We just like say the word and it's like, and that word creates a world, right, of stuff that if you've gone through a lot of experiences, you have clarity over. So, like for example, in like my mystery schools, instead of calling it like an enduring pattern, we would call that an earth process. So if I'm working with somebody in my mystery school and I say, hey, they're in an earth process, I don't need to explain what that means. They know exactly what's going on. They know that person's physiological and psychological things that they're going through, how to attune to them. It just creates a whole world of how we can show up for this person. Very dynamic, very efficient, right? So that's what specialized terminology does. I don't believe that you can master anything unless you're keenly aware of specialized terminology. And that goes for any language. Like if you want to learn languages all over the world, when I learned Espanol in school, I did that for 6 years, but America doesn't teach languages well because you don't speak, they just teach you grammar the whole time. It doesn't give you a lot of access. But Elon lived in Spain for 6 months, his senior year of college, and he became fluent within 4 months. And to this day, he has a really good fluency in Spanish. He's not as good as he used to be, but at that time, totally fluent. Him and I traveled to Italy together a few years after that, and he was speaking Spanish. They spoke Italian and Romance languages. Everyone understood each other. It was very, very, very easygoing. So, so mastery, right? Like, I want to kind of challenge you here. Like, what are you doing in that realm of life? And it doesn't have to be a single realm, but if you guys are here and you're doing this with us, like my call for you is like become a master of the self. Like take this on as becoming really masterful with the self because it will provide access to everything else in your life in unimaginable ways. It'll just make things easier because guess what? No matter what you do in life, you know who's going to be there? You. The self is going to be there. So you might as well gain some mastery with that individual, and like be gracious with yourself. Be compassionate towards yourself. And these are not things that anyone I've ever met has online. And not because that's not our natural state. Those are our natural states. But we've gone through a great deal of confusion the last few thousand years, and we've made being a human being extraordinarily complicated. And we've had a lot of rules, and then people feel very disconnected from who they really are. How many times have you heard someone travel somewhere and say, "Yeah, I got to go find myself." Well, where the fuck are you? Are you in Spain somewhere? I know you're living in Kansas. Is there a version of you in Spain you're waiting for? And so I'm not saying that there's not value in traveling and having experiences. Certainly there are, but I'm saying you're still there. Like people end marriages because they think they'll be happy, or they get into marriage because they think they'll be happy, or they have children, or they start a business. But like, no matter where you go, what do they say? There you are. You can move to a different location, but the one thing that always comes with you, the baggage that's always there, the person you always go to sleep at night with, regardless of who you divorce or who you marry, is you. So I think it's a worthwhile thing. So Michelle's asking about the second book. So I didn't mention it yet, but I will. Thank you for the reminder. The second book is called The Art of Learning. I believe the first name is Josh for sure. I always get his last name wrong. I think it's Wazinski or something like that. In short, why I recommend that book. So Josh is the youngest world champion in chess ever. He may have been beaten by now, but at least at the time the book was written, he was the youngest. He was maybe like 14 or 15 years old, I think, when he became like the number one chess player in the world. Chess players, for those that do or don't know, extravagant minds, all in their own right. I've recently taken on playing chess with my 6-year-old. He whooped my ass this morning. Whooped my ass. It's like it was like I felt like a danger. I was like, oh my God, this kid is setting me up. Danger. Like, whooped my ass. Yeah. Watson, thank you. Art of Learning, Watson. So why is this a cool book? So obviously he takes you through his upbringing and like what created this desire and how he became so good. But I found even more fascinating is when he retires from the world of chess, he begins to get involved in martial arts. And I think he goes starts doing Tai Chi or something like that. Again, maybe not Tai Chi, but because Tai Chi is more of that. I don't remember. There's some martial arts that he does, and it's a type of thing that is mastered in the Eastern world, like China and places like that have mastery in this. People in the Western world, like even if they come participate in these in these championships, they don't do well. Like there's never been like a quote unquote white person that's like won these tournaments before. Um, and what's really interesting about that is not just that he does that, it's that the book is really about mastery. He doesn't say that outright, but the book is like he mastered chess. And what's cool is he does this martial arts, two things that seem completely juxtaposed and opposite of each other. And yet the parallels that he draws between how chess taught him how to be a great champion, basically, in this martial arts are profound, very profound. And if you get the audio version, I believe it's still there. There is a interview with Tim Ferriss at the end of it. That's like 2 or 3 hours long. And of course, Tim is, if you know Tim, he's like a very curious person and asks very elegant questions. So he kind of brings the best out of Josh too, which is very, very cool. So I highly recommend that. Um, any thoughts about that? Any questions anybody has? If you want to just pop out and ask, I'm just curious what's there in the space.
I'm curious. One of the challenges that I tend to have that like, and it's a pattern I notice like more now doing minis. Um, at what point do you feel like going into the mind to like procrastinate? Because I tend to like do a lot of learning every day, but like I'll do it sometimes to avoid feeling.
Yes.
So like even like as I pick up the art of learning and I look it up on Amazon, I'm just like, are you doing this to like genuinely enjoy this chess, master, or are you doing it to like avoid something else? And I'm just noticing the distinction because I never noticed that, say 6 months ago, even,
Sure.
and here I am 39 years old. So I'm just curious if you've ever come across that or noticed
Yeah.
anything in that.
Well, I think
Yeah.
if the question is there, the answer is probably there too, Brad. Like if you got to ask
The
the question,
inconvenient,
yeah,
the
if you got to
inconvenient
ask the
reply.
question, you probably know the answer. And then we have to do our mental gymnastics to try to provide evidence as to why we're doing something or not doing something.
Uh,
I think procrastination is like it's a strong word for a very soft human trait. Like we're generally speaking, like we like to generate, right? Like human beings like to generate, but we're like a lot of us are visionaries and it's like we have these creative ideas that feel really good, but then like putting it into practice can feel kind of overwhelming. And so to some degree, and kind of if you look at like the animal world too, like unless there's a reason, animals in general are pretty like we just kind of like lay around. We don't do very much. Like
The
so
lion, I mean, that's the lion thing. Like they hunt for an hour and then they sleep
same
20
like
hours a day.
monkeys too, right? Like they're these like kind of pretty lazy creatures unless they're like going to war or they need to pick a berry off a tree. Like they're not doing too much,
Right.
and once in a while like trying to get off. So like that's kind of the crux of it. And so humanity like too, like we have a tendency to procrastinate sometimes interpersonally and sometimes at the level of society. Like, I've had to track this through the field a few times, and I'm going to say something right now that you'll have to sit with. Like, I'm not looking for agreement. You could sit with it and take it into consideration on your own. But like, I feel like I have a few gifts, and I'll name a few of them. One of them is to take esoteric principles, like ancient spiritual principles, and make them pragmatic. Like that's always been a gift, somewhat of a gift of mine. The
Right.
other is to like zoom out and look at how do things work in nature collectively, and noticing that there's a pattern between nature and what happens in our spirituality. Okay, so it's like we all, because we're nuanced, selfish creatures, we don't often think about the impact at the level of scale, like what's happening at the level of society. So I want to say that again, the things I'm about to say are informed by a variety of different things. And I don't want to sway anybody's whether they're spiritual or personal or religious beliefs by saying what I'm about to say, but I just want to say that it's coming from a source, okay? So in the ancient world, there were certain predictions made about things that would happen in time. Like obviously everyone knows the Mayan stuff with 2012, right? The Western world took that to mean that there was going to be end of times when 2012 happened, but that's not what the Mayans said at all. The Mayans were basically saying it's the end of a cycle, and 2012 was the beginning of a new cycle. Okay. In Native American culture, they have this thing called the three stones. And so there's this drawing that they made in ancient times showing these three large stones. And the three large stones were predicted to be exactly on the timelines that World War One happened, World War Two happened, and then there's a third stone that may or may not have already happened when COVID occurred. Okay. The reason I mention this is because we teach some of this in the intuitive mind, and now it's called the limitless event. But we talk about how like soul contracts, right? Like we see a lot of stuff happen in our world that is hard to explain, whether it's like a child being taken too early or terrorism or whatever it might be. But like if we kind of zoom out and we leave the human morality away and we just look at like spiritual purpose. And that's it. I'm just saying clean like that, like no human morality is part of it. It's like sometimes a soul comes in and doesn't spend a lot of time here because the lesson was not for that soul. The soul came to teach the other souls a lesson. So like, let's say a child comes in and gets sick or dies prematurely. Awful, like fucking hard, like maybe hardest thing that a human being can experience. It makes me want to just cry just to even think about that. But like, what's the lesson for the parents or the people that were impacted by that child's life? Maybe they're significantly more empathetic for the rest of their life. And maybe that's what that soul came here for. They came to learn empathy. And so that other soul on the other side said, hey, I'll come down and I'll be your kid for a really short period of time to do what? To teach you empathy. Difficult as a human, but maybe understandable as why a soul would do something like that. So taking that into consideration, and I'm sorry I'm using such a difficult circumstance, but I wanted to elucidate it, at least from that point of view. So then, like, what's the role of war? Well, a lot of people die, generally speaking. But when you see war on the planet, besides the anger that you might feel, frustration that you might feel, what's the contentions that maybe the collective is feeling at the same time? Usually it's like, I don't want that anymore. So what is it teaching everyone on the planet? More empathy, right? So fucking horrible. And like I'm a Jew. Like my grandparents lived through, some of them didn't, through the Holocaust. I've been hearing about that stuff my whole life, right? I could have very, very strong opinions about what's happening on that side of the world. I grew up in Israel. Like, I have ties there. My mom is Ukrainian, by the way. Everywhere I'm from is in war, So again, I could have really strong opinions about that, and I could tell you like part of why I know the work works is where I sit today on those things. Like I just sit and all I'm like is like it's just we just need stability. We need care, we need presence, and I don't care what side of whatever issue you're on, everybody needs the same thing. As long as I lived in Israel, the complaints I hear from Israelis and Palestinians are identical. 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 Right? So again, I'm sorry this is so charged, but I'm kind of using this as an overarching example, and I really don't mean it to be charged. So take a moment just to get breath because of the nature of the conversation. And just kind of find your feet and find your chair because that's something that I think we all want to see an end to. But again, let's zoom out. What's the role of this? Why do we choose into this? Why did we unconsciously choose into these things? Why do souls say, I'm going to participate in that? Going to take life or give life, right? Or whatever it might be. So look at our history, even in the 20th century. What happens after a massive event like that? So let's like use World War II for an example. So this horrible thing happens. And then we go from like, I'll use America as an example. 1950s, we have Stepford Wives. Everyone's buttoned up, following the rules, just going with the protocols. Not a lot of consciousness there. Just automatons doing what they're told for the most part. I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule, by the way, at this point in time. I'm kind of looking at the overarching. 10 years later, people are taking acid and life becomes Technicolor. 10 years. It's pretty fast expansion, right? And then like that hasn't ended since the 60s because hey, the Beatles bring over the Maharaji, like yoga starts, this whole consciousness movement begins, people start exploring consciousness in new ways. Up until then, it was like you're going to be like hung in the streets if you even talk about these type of things, right? Like pretty vast change in a very short period of time. And for some of us, like the 60s feels like another life to me. I wasn't born till the 80s. But for a lot of people, that feels like the life that you knew, and you've been through all these changes. That's a lot of change in a 60-year period. Think about how little change was happening prior to that. Authoritarianism everywhere, kings and queens ruling the world. People have no say at all, very little, no food on the table, barely living 40 years of age. It's wild. So when you think of it in terms of like, are we evolving? Well, I mean, the last 60 years, like single, like one generation of people, holy shit, right? And now, as long as you're going to hang around for the next 20 years or so of life, if that's your soul's purpose to do so, you are going to go through the single biggest change in human history. It's going to make the last 60 years look like we barely even moved. Think about the changes that have happened since COVID. Questions that people were not asking about the nature of this reality, about the nature of medicine, about the nature of politics and economics, weren't asking. Maybe 5% were asking that. Now, like half are asking those questions. It's a big fucking change in a 4-year period. Again, we can say right, wrong, whatever your politics are. I'm leaving that off the table. That's for you to discern. I don't really care. All I care about is you feel safe, everyone else feels safe. We're doing the best that we can. So you might be asking, like, why does it feel like we're ripping at the seams? Well, I would offer that human beings learn through contrast. And if we want to be in a period of time of accelerated learning, then we need a lot more contrast. And so, shit, if we're not getting a lot of contrast right now, right? So, what does that tell you about what's happening? And not for nothing, I don't know about you guys, I didn't know AI was on the docket in my lifetime. I thought that was like maybe happening if we're lucky, like towards the end of it. I'd like maybe have a little contentions over what that is, like around 2050. That's where the predictions were. So we are on the cusp of an AI revolution that's already happening. And if you're not paying attention, you're gonna suffer. We're on the precipice of quantum computing emerging simultaneously with potentially the biggest systemic changes that we have seen culturally and politically in thousands of years. Empires will fall, economics will change, and instability will occur. Like that's just what's coming. But this shouldn't be that scary. Human beings are wildly adaptable, and we've created many systems in states of urgency that have been significantly better than what had came before it. And that's usually the role of evolution, is like it gets like more complex, but we generally speaking learn. And so we're in what feels to me like a convergence event between spirituality and science, which has unfortunately become the new spirituality in some ways, quantum physics, quantum computing, and AI, which is about to reveal things to our minds that have been hidden from us, because it's already doing that now. It's also why I launched Primus. So if you're not playing with it, that you guys can have a little bit of playtime with it. And it doesn't mean it's perfect, but what I can tell you is like, what do we all really want? Like, why did you guys come here? Why did you guys come to this environment? Like maybe there's a resonance, sure. But like here's what I always want. I want the cleanest mirror that I can possibly get. Because I literally cannot tell the difference between my elbow and my ass. Like I'm just gonna tell you. I can't. I'd like to think that I know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on because like I'm at the point where I realize how influential our conditioning is. So if I don't have a clean mirror, I'm unable to see myself. Yeah. And the mirror that I've looked through, that your conditioning looks through, is really distorted. And a lot of you guys come here with your distorted mirrors, and that's why you're suffering because you can't get a clean look, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I keep running this pattern. I don't know why I keep running into this problem. Yeah, distortion. You're not, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not fucked up. You're not too far gone. There's nothing going on that's going on like that. And that's to me what healing is. Healing is like, oh, you get a clean look and you get a glimpse and you're like, oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. Right. And then it's like, once you get that clean look, it's like, well, all right, well, how do I get support? Because what's creating the distortion is the trauma response. It thinks it knows what's going on. It thinks the perceived reality is true. And it's fine if you indulge in that, but you already know how that indulgence goes. It's like if you indulge in chocolate over and over again, I can tell you how it's going to go. It's delicious, right? But it's not going to make you healthy. Like, right? So it's like it's the same thing with our patterns. It's fine to indulge. It doesn't make you a bad person, but you know the patterns of those indulgences. And you wouldn't be here if you were okay with that. And there's a lot of people that are fine with that, or that they don't even know that there's a different way. So they don't know that they have an option to not be fine with that. Right. And so most of the planet is sitting in the place where they don't know that they have a choice. And every single thing they see on the news is just wrought with suffering because it looks like everything that they've trusted and had the status quo on is falling apart. And at the same time, they have an unconscious desire, if you notice, like everybody wants change. It seems like, right? I think about both sides, whatever side of the political arena you can agree on, is that they both agree that the change needs to happen, right? Or whatever. Like the world is kind of in this place where we're like, enough is enough. Like we've been doing this shit for too long. Like we've gotten to a place where we have enough eyesight on everything that we can cohere. Like, like when we used to send people overseas again, sorry to use war as a thing. The war wasn't at home. That was over there. You didn't see the theater of it. Today, I'm not saying you know it firsthand, but at least you get a glimpse and you're like, that's fucked up, right? 100 years ago, nobody saw that stuff. They just knew that people didn't come home. They didn't know what was actually going on over there.
Are you feeling inspired by these podcasts? Is this approach striking a chord with you? Imagine taking this journey even further with personal coaching from Guy and I, right from your own home on Zoom. Join us at our next live event. They happen quarterly. It's an accessible, cost-effective way to dive deep into these transformative practices, not just theoretically, but experientially. Attendees often share that they've experienced unprecedented levels of peace, support, forgiveness, and awareness. Remember, healing isn't just a mental exercise. It must be felt and released through the body. So here's a special gift just for you, our valued listener. Visit intuitivemind.live and use the coupon code OLDSOUL to receive 25% off your ticket. The Intuitive Mind event is unlike any other. So impactful that many participants return multiple times, some as many as 10, 12, even 15 times. Plus, once you register, we'll immediately send you a recording of a previous event so that you can start practicing right away. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to intuitivemind.live, secure your spot for our next live event using the coupon code OLDSOUL, and start your transformative journey today. Now, back to the show.
Yeah. So just to kind of loop back on this, in 2018 and 2019, I was going on a lot of podcasts and they asked me all these questions and I'd say, wait till 2020 rolls around. And they were like, why, what's happening 2020? I'm like, I don't know, but you can feel the tsunami coming. When a tsunami comes, if you were standing, not that I'd want you standing there, but if you were standing there, what would you observe? You would observe the water is receding. And when people see water receding, they're like, cool, I can run into the ocean, right? Like, because you can suddenly run like farther into the ocean. But what's hanging over there is a 300-foot wave that's about to come. And so like in the field of energy, just like there is inside of us, there's like moving water, right? Like the ocean moves. Again, this is a physical representation of rhythmic energy that we're all experiencing on the inside of ourselves all the time. There's a rhythm and a movement, and sometimes the tsunami is fucking coming, right? And so in 2020, there was I could sense it in the field, but it was also informed. Ancient said 2020 to 2026 is going to be like crazy times. Like this is the time of great change. Native American culture said this. Many, many cultures said this. This was not unknown. So it's funny. I was in a podcast in 2019. I remember I was with this kid and I was like, something big is coming. I'm like, I don't know if it's a war. I don't know if it's a collective fart. I'm like, but there's like going to be like a shared experience that's coming. And then like March, we all got into lockdowns and COVID happened. And he called me like right away. He's like, how the hell did you know this was happening? I'm like, oh, I didn't know. I'm like, but I could feel the swell and it was informed by, some of these predictions. I'm like, I'm not surprised at all that we're here. So if there was a way, we have to wonder, how did they do stuff like that? How could they have been so knowledgeable? But I would argue that when the world is quiet and we sit with ourselves, that these things become self-evident. Think about the power of a computer, even the worst computer on planet Earth, when it's just like on its own. It has its what you've installed on it, what you put on it. That's the conditioning, right? The installed programs, the apps, whatever. But you could take the worst computer on the planet and then connect it to the internet, and that shitty computer becomes a wealth of knowledge. So my offering is like, what does this work provide for people? Well, this is what the choice the people don't know that they have. You can either operate from your small mind, which is the conditioning that you have, the programs that have been pre-installed. Okay. That's going to be predict a lot about the way your life is going to go. Okay. This work in the esoteric sense, this is why we talk about nervous system regulation, because it certainly helps that. And I think for most people, that's just like it's a way to at least understand the technology that we're offering here. But at its core, it's much, much deeper than that. Much, much deeper. Because this is not, we're not here to help you understand how to regulate your nervous system. We're happy it does that. But when you go into awareness, I mean, like you can open to vast spiritual gifts, things that we don't have names for yet. And so part of that is recognizing that when you sit in awareness, the way that you guys are doing, part of what you're starting to recognize, and it really is, that's why let's just say this, you can learn stuff, like have an insight. You can have wisdom because you had that experience, or you can have realization. We're here to have realizations. Okay. Awakening is a realization process because awareness is already aware of everything. There's nothing excluded. And so the more time you spend in awareness, you'll realize something about the quality of awareness is that awareness is aware of itself, which is a weird paradoxical thing. I mean, aren't you aware of yourself, Christy? Carlos? You're not unaware of yourself. So there's some part of you that's self-reflective, is it not? So what do you think is happening at grand scale? God aware of God, awareness aware of awareness, so on and so forth. And so what can awareness do when it becomes aware of itself? It can teach itself. So when you begin to spend more time in awareness, it's like plugging in the computer to the internet. The spiritual cloud of all consciousness is available to you. The really weird shit that really messes with your head when you're like, okay, go find your awareness, and people are like, oh, I found it. It feels so good. I'm like, okay, here's the really wild part. That's not your awareness. That's just awareness. All of it. Like sit with that for a moment. If you knew you could connect to the all, how much time would you spend there? Wouldn't we all choose to just be there all the time? And then there's qualities that come along with that, because in that awareness, what happens is the natural gifts that you came here with become self-effacing. They actually activate as a function of being in the awareness for more and more time. And like I said, it will begin to teach itself. At first, we talked about being a student. I love how these conversations roll around. And we talk about being like student, practitioner, master, because I don't plan for any of these conversations. So whatever comes through, comes through. Right. So it's like at first, if you're a student, I'm like, hey, have you noticed your awareness today? Yes, I have, teacher. Thank you very much. Good awareness, right? And then it's like, oh, now you become a practitioner. Oh, I can find my awareness by myself, but it's not expressing yet. It's not it's not right. Like we talked about music. Like I'm not generating yet, but eventually you get there and you're like, oh, it's expressing. But it doesn't. It can express in words or like a thought or intuition, but it's really deeper than that. Doing work is about noticing qualities. That's it. But at least that's where I've come to so far. There might be deeper layers to this, but it's just like you've heard Elon maybe say this is like, what's new today? It's another way of saying, what qualities are you noticing today when you connect? Is the quality, for an example, is the quality dense? Is the quality narrow? Does it feel fluffy? I mean, and like seriously, these would be more accurate words to use than to try to explain through a distinction. I had teachers that would just make sounds. And at first I'm like, what is this weird shit these people are doing? But eventually I realized they're describing what's in the field more accurately because the field is not linguistic. It's qualitative. And part of the challenge we've always had with what we do here is that because the nature of our work is qualitative, how do you put a guarantee on that? How do you ROI what we're doing? You know, usually when coaches coach, they coach based on like how much money you can earn by going through this program, right? Like I'll put a 2x guarantee on it. If you give me 10 grand, you'll make 20 grand by the end of such and such. That's an easy thing to market because if you want to make 20 grand instead of 10 grand, oh, well, this is the program for me. Easy choice. But when you're talking about the state of beingness as an end result, how do you promise that? And I know, guaranteed that if you do this work, I mean, not just a little bit enhancement, but like provincially an uncalculatable amount of ROI in your life. And that might be more money, and when you clean stuff up, money might not even be a thing anymore. Might not even do anything for you anymore. And then it might fall from the sky because of that. The more we want something, the more we pressurize it away from ourselves. That's just how it happens. The less attached, the more stable we are. You know, reality is a mirror that mimics your own output signal. The more stable you are, the more open you are, the more compassionate you are. Reality is just going to mimic not your thoughts, but it's going to mimic your output signal. It's going to mirror your capacity. Whatever you want in life, be it money or relational or whatever, set the intention. Set the intention. But here's the deal. After you set the intention, I'm going to say it in a funny way. I don't mean it this way. Prepare for disappointment. And I'm not trying to like set you up. I'm just saying like you're sending a signal. You're saying, here's the life that I want, the quality that I want to live in. The universe is like, yeah, got it. I'm in. I will mirror that for you. But everything that's in a way of that will be the first thing that shows up. You can't just have it because your mind wants it. And often it's what you're asking for is not even in coherence with what you really want. It's simply a traumatic response. Your nervous system, your ego is asking for that out of a need for safety, which is why it even lacks the capacity of alignment. You don't even know what you want. You know what your conditioning wants, but you have no idea who you are without that conditioning. So how could you know what you want? Does that make sense? So it's like some of you guys think you're like, oh, if I just clean that up, everything will be great. It won't be because it won't make any difference for your inner world. If I just have enough money, I'll finally feel safe. Maybe for a period of time. But trust me, the ego will hook into something else. It'll figure out how to fuck it all up and make it a very difficult experience. Right? So we got to be prepared for, it's like they say, be careful what you wish for. Why? Why do they say that? because it's a rule of thumb. You ask for it, generally speaking. It's like if I find out that I'm not self-expressed, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna set this intention wherever I go. I'm just gonna make my voice be heard, right? Tell people what I think. Guess what? You wake up the next morning, you know what you see? You're fucking terrified of everything. Every person that you feel like you don't have self-expression with is it's jarring. You realize all the ways that you're not self-expressed first. And then you got to do the work, clean up all the stuff that makes you feel like you can't express yourself. And then what happens? Eventually you become self-expressed, right? It's always like that. It's never that. It's never not that way. So realize like there's no easy button. There's no shortcut. You'll always be a student first, then a practitioner, then a master. And if you pick another area of life to master, like money or something else, guess what? You're going to become a student again and a practitioner again and a master again. And you're going to repeat this process over and over and over and over again forever. There's things that terrify me. I love singing, but I can't do it in front of people. Terrifies me. I took some singing lessons a few years ago, opened me up a little bit. Okay, now I can sing in front of my kids. Like little things like that. But like I set an intention in the beginning of the year. My wife's like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "I want to sing more." I don't know what that looks like, but it's always just felt like, oh, this is something that it feels important to me. Like it feels important to move that energy through my body. And medicine's helped me open that up and a lot of other stuff. It seems so simple and ridiculous, but like, I don't know, it's important to me. And again, the moment I start it, I'm terrified. Student again, practitioner again, mastery again, right? Never ends. But what the reason I come back to this and like master the self is because when those things arise in my system, I don't get stuck. I could put one foot in front of the other. And people who are not successful at things in life, they let fear dictate everything. They just do. Even when I was doing personal development, like that's what Elon and I did for 15 years. We got into like an affiliate network company, not a network marketing company, but kind of a similar model, let's say. I think there was like 5,000 people in that organization. Do you know, like in network marketing, you're lucky if 3% of the people who are participating make money, right? Not because there's anything flawed with network marketing, honestly. It's actually a great business model, all told. It's because people they don't know how to deal with what they're afraid of. So putting themselves out there, asking for support, putting together business systems, learning about marketing, sales, right? Like this stuff terrifies human beings, terrifies them. You know what the number one fear is on planet Earth? Is public speaking. The second fear is dying. So Jerry Seinfeld used to laugh, people are more scared of giving the eulogy than being the person in the box. It's funny, right? It's hilarious. We're so afraid to be exposed. We're so afraid to show what we are. Again, not a flaw of the model, a flaw of people and conditioning. So then those results become extremely predictable. So Elon and I got into a company like that, and guess what? Within 9 months, we were top earners in the company. How did we do that? How did we do that? I can tell you. Where everyone else was afraid, I was taking action. I was afraid too, terrified. I put myself in immense amount of debt. At that time, I had $400 in the bank, and in 9 months, became a top earner in that company. $400. I had no resources. You know what I did? $30,000 in credit card debt. That's how I did it. Stupid, yes. Ballsy, also yes. But here's the thing. I knew that without personal experience, there was no way to make it work. I could sit and learn about marketing and think about it, but without application, I wasn't going to learn anything. So the only way to do it was to go online and start doing paid marketing. Learn how to fail terribly. But I was like, I have 30 grand to figure out how to make money online. And if I can figure out how to do that, I'll be able to write a check for the rest of my life. Is that worth the investment? And for everybody else, like just driving traffic to a landing page, if you know what that is just a terrifying proposition. What? Put money behind something? No. Let me figure out how it works first, then I'll do it. You can't. You can't do it that way. You either get your ass on the court or go back in the stands. And what do the people in the stands do? They opine about what the people on the court are doing, which is like all of political theater everywhere else in the world. Everyone just sits around complaining and doing all the things that they do, but they're not ones playing the game. And if you're not willing to put your ass on the line and play the game, then honestly shut the fuck up because just complaining doesn't do anything. I'm happy to hear your opinion. Play the game. Let me know once you're down in the trenches what's actually going on, right? Otherwise, you're and not shut the fuck up because I don't have respect for you. It's just that like it's more like you are speaking from a place of no wisdom and no knowledge. You don't know what you're talking about. And most of the internet is wrought with this. The markets go down, everyone becomes an investment guru overnight. A pandemic hits, everyone becomes a medical practitioner overnight. I'm like, you guys don't know the first thing about virology. What are you talking about? You know? So we gotta watch how we approach stuff. Because and for no other reason than why are you wasting your time and your energy on stuff like that when you could be sitting and connecting with source or sitting and regulating your nervous system or learning about mindset, like stuff that truly makes a difference. Like how much time like I remember when I first learned personal development, I was like, wow, I used to waste a lot of time on complaining. So much time. Spend a lot of time complaining, spend a lot of time opining with people about things that really didn't matter and getting really worked up about it. And then I figured out at some point in time that like when you're in an argument with another person, the biological, biochemical response in the brain is the same exact thing that happens to the brain when a knife is being coming at your face. It's exactly the same. So if you ever want to know why when you get into heated arguments, you argue like your life is on the line, because to the brain it literally feels as if it does. Like as if your life is on the line. So you respond the way you respond, which should also give you some empathy for people. It's like they can't help themselves. But when you realize, like, wow, I am wasting my life opining. If you just stopped caring, if you just ignored it, if you just learned that being right is like literally the least crucial thing of your entire life. Do you know how much time you get back? How much energy you get back? An inordinate amount, like a mind-blowing amount. You're like, what was I doing with all that time? So just some food for thought. Being right is like an aphrodisiac. It feels really good in the moment. And then it sucks the life out of you. It destroys your relationships. If people realized what they were giving up in their life for being right, everyone would stop immediately. It's literally like one of the worst things you could ever spend your time doing. And it takes a great deal of awareness and practice to not do it because it's so seductive. It's so seductive. And at the end of the day, what does it all come down to? I want to be right so I can feel safe, right? So if I'm willing to play instead of trying to be right, I come and just cultivate safety. Guess what happens? The need to be right at least decreases tremendously. Then you can get on with your life. Some of you guys are destroying relationships simply to be right. Some of you guys are right about your finances. Some of you guys are being right about your health. Some of you guys are being right about politics. It's fine. I mean, like, all this, everything I'm sharing here, it's just fine. Like your life will be fine. But did you come here for fine? Or are you looking for something a little bit more? I want extraordinary, as much of it as I can have. But that means living my life in an open state because extraordinary doesn't happen in a closed state, and fine is a closed state. Yeah. So I'll wrap up with that. Um, I want to tell you guys again, like if you're not part of the mini groups, if you're not doing those, I kind of started with it. Like there's only certain experiences that you're willing to have. If you want to expand outside those experiences, as far as I'm concerned, you cannot do that without another person present. You just can't. Your system won't allow it. It is in the co-regulation and the safe bonding process that our system turns and is willing to look. There's a reason I have a teacher for 9 years. And today, I'm 23 years into this journey. I have more people around me today that support me. For 15 years, not really. Coaches here and there, teachers here and there, but I didn't build a system of support, right? So like part of what this community is here for is knowing that it's not easy to always build a system of support. So we've built it for you. All you have to do is plug in. If nothing else, to do the minis. If that's all you ever do with us, I hope that's not all you ever do with us, because this rabbit hole goes a lot deeper than just minis. And we would love to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. In the words of Morpheus to Neo, like come and take the red pill or whatever it was, the blue pill. I don't remember which one. I think it's red pill. And it goes a lot deeper and it could get a lot richer and a lot weirder, but really cool. But really cool. So, um, whew, that's a good question, Laurel. Laurel's asking, can this work be done with God as the other? Let me sit with that. Yes, and I would say that. And again, don't take this as fact. It's more of I'm going to say it, and then you get to sit with it and see if it resonates for you. I'm just making sure I'm saying this from a clean place too. 1 second. I suppose it depends on what you mean by God and what's your relationship with God. So a lot of us have like, religious contentions with God, and that's fine. But like, whether you think it's the all or the universe or the infinite or God, it doesn't really matter to me what word is there, but it's like, is the nature of that relationship that this consciousness that you're sitting with is unconditionally loving? And a lot of religious practices has you not believe that. It makes you think that it's this consciousness is wrathful or needs something of you. And I would just say it's like, does a parent bring a child into this world with the expectation of like getting something in return, or that it's going to judge the child when the child comes into this world? It just seems insane to me that we would think that God is wrathful in some way other than just completely unconditionally loving. So, if you're sitting there to be judged, probably not going to be healthy for you. If you're sitting there to be open, it might be a different experience. Having said that, at the end of the day, we're still biological entities with a nervous system. And as far as I know, it would be fairly challenging to have relationality at the level of God with a nervous system. Energetically, sure, but that part to me feels like it's missing. And so as long as we're in these bodies for the time being, we need another body there with us to feel relationally safe. And so I still think it would be greatly enhanced by sitting with somebody else. And it might be self-reflective on how that influences your relationship with God. Anyway, it might actually greatly enhance it. So I'm all for you sitting with the all. I think it's a really powerful modality to meditate in the quiet and do that. And that's the truth. We're biological entities and we're relational entities. And so if trauma happened at the level of relationality, with the repair needs to happen at the level of relationality too. And those distortions, as they clean up, will actually very likely make your relationship with God more pronounced. Like I had a very angry relationship with God for a very, very long time. Even saying that word was extremely charged for me. Like I would not say that before because I thought you would think I'd think there's a old man in the sky with a beard. So I didn't want to have that relatability in the world, so I just wouldn't use that word. And Jews don't even write the word God, or they just say the word G-D. Like that's the world I grew up in. So there was this kind of like weird relationship there for me. But as things cleaned up, and again, I still don't think there's an old man in the sky. I just think there's a field of consciousness that's we can all connect to very easily. And whether you know it or not, the stuff that we point to um, in the minis is a connection to that, right? What we do at the live events is a connection to that. And so like the weird stuff, somebody was asking when you talk about weird stuff, are you talking about esoteric? Yeah, I mean like here's the reality. We're all multidimensional creatures with mystical capabilities. How mysticism comes through anybody's system is how it comes through your system. And in a world of infinite dimensions, which PS, when we get out of this third and fourth dimensional purview. It's not like we go to like the fifth dimension and sixth dimension. It's not linear. After this is all dimensions. That's it. There's this, and then there's all dimensions. I mean, try to put that hat on. What the hell does that look like? Right? But if we're moving towards this awakening of all dimensions, then anything is possible. Literally anything. Like a dragon flying out of your heart and being like, "Hi, my name is Bob." Like that's possible. You know? I mean, it sounds totally nuts, but like, where do you think our mythology comes from? Where do you think all these ideas come from? I'm being ridiculous, but why not? So when you touch that, in my opinion, you become much more self-aware. Like that's why people do plant medicine. And in a world that's trying to be controlled and status quoed, it's very difficult to control people who've awakened to these ideas. So it has not been, let's say, the rule of law, right? Like many religions do not teach their mystical sides, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, or anything else. And like the wisdom is sitting there. Go study the Kabbalah, go study Christian, mysticism. It's incredible. So much wisdom is there. So, do that with that what you will, but like that's been my experience. Is like humans are, wow, like incredible, incredible, far beyond what we've seen, far, far, far beyond what we've seen. And I've been fortunate to be in the rooms with the people who are displaying these gifts, and it's the weirdest shit you've ever seen. And you have to suspend your belief about everything that you think is real. It looks like Hogwarts. It just does. And take that for what you will. It takes quite a bit of time to be like, wow, like we can do that. It's like, yeah, we can do that. And the path that we're pointing you guys to, that's what I say. You think it's about nervous system regulation? It is, but it's not. It's like really opening up the system to have firsthand experiences of the magic that you are. But before that happens, or I say as that's happening, guess what? The system needs safety. You get to feel safe. The system doesn't open. The heart doesn't open when it's under duress and stress. It just doesn't do it. But when it does, holy bananas. And that's why we want you guys here for the long haul. We don't want you just, okay, it's nice to do the program. Okay, you came in for nervous system regulation. Phenomenal. Great. If that's like as deep as the hole goes for you, awesome. But if you want to explore that other stuff, that's what level 2, level 3, and beyond is for. Like we don't even tell you guys that there's a level 4, but there is. Because you need to set those foundations in your system to open the system up to what can happen there. It's also why we bring people to Colombia so they can get a glimpse of what's going on, right? That kind of stuff. So we do these things very mindfully. It's taken us a very, very long time to come to these realizations in our own life. And we're just here to accelerate you guys through what has taken of like siphoning through a lot of shit to figure out what actually works for people and opening up their systems in this way. And with these changes that are here and are pervasively coming, it's never been more important to learn how to stabilize your system because it's going to be super intense out there. This is not going anywhere soon. Like this intensity that's been happening the last 5 years, do not expect for it to die down. I would expect for it to crank. Right? So you're either going to be, everyone's going to evolve. Let's just say that. It doesn't matter whether you do what we're doing or not. Evolution's coming for everybody. It leaves no man or woman behind. Having said that, how you evolve is your choice. And you can either suffer through that or maybe choose your way out of this body because it's too much or too intense, or you can become self-aware and start participating in what's happening. Like you've all been in the ocean and taking that brunt of that wave straight to the face. You know what that feels like? That's very different than riding the wave. Same wave, different way. One is riding the wave, the other one is just taking it straight on the chin. Same wave. Think of it that way. The energy is like a wave that's moving. Either you learn to ride that wave and reduce or end your suffering, and you just participate in this evolutionary process, or you take it on the chin because your parts are committed to what they've already known, and they're hanging on to what they perceive as safety that doesn't even exist. This makes sense. Cool. No, it didn't come earlier. You know, again, we don't know the exact dates. We just know perceived periods of time, but like yeah, I don't want to say that part. I don't want to say that part that comes, you know, again, like there's timelines where we evolve very quickly in the next like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And there's timelines where we do that same evolution, but it take 400 or 500 years. All roads lead the same way. It's like you can pave over a garden. Eventually the concrete does crack, and guess what? The plant makes it through the cracks and it still points at the sun. And that's kind of how we are. We our north is towards the light. So it doesn't really matter what may get kicked over that. Truth is truth. It reveals itself. Last thing I'll say here. Again, I know these are very big ideas. I'm sloshing on a Tuesday call for you guys, but let me just again feel into that for a moment. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Hopefully this is coming through not just words to convince you, but as a resonant feeling. How many of you guys feel something in your body as I share these things? And part of it might be like excitement. Part of it also might be like fear. Yeah, is that true? Like there's like a jitteriness. But like, so here's the deal. Notice the jitteriness. Notice what happens when you make a claim that the status quo does not exist, or that there's no ground to really stand on at all. Because the groundedness that you're wanting is not physical, it's spiritual. And if you keep looking outside of yourself to try to create a life that's grounded, you're going to be really fucking disappointed because this world is like a goddamn earthquake. We just had one yesterday here in San Diego. We had a 6.7 hit for a minute. It's first. I've been here for 12 years. It was the first real earthquake I've experienced. Like the shaking is happening, right? So it's not about trying to make the world stable. It's like the world is also it's our collective conscious mirror. When we're feeling shaky, guess what does the world do? It shakes, right? If we want stability, guess what? We need a lot of people with stability in their nervous systems. That stability is shared by other people around you. It stabilizes them. They become more stable. Then they become more stable. Then they become more stable, right? And if you know how like things grow when they begin to compound within a few generations, right, or a few laps of that, the whole world becomes stable. Um, I don't recommend reading this book because it's so damn thick, but there's a book called Religions of Tomorrow. It's by Ken Wilber. Very smart individual, clearly awakened human being to some degree. And you know, the predictions are, just so you guys are aware, it's not like a 50% adoption rate. That's not what creates change. 5%. 5%. When they map this stuff out, 5%. You get 5% operating on a new frequency, it spreads like wildfire. 5%. How far away do you think we're from 5%? How many conscious people have you met in your life? More in the last 20 years than 30 years ago that are part of these conversations, that are at least curious and looking. A lot more, right? Hopefully a lot more. Like I spend all my time in environments with people like this. It's mind-blowing how many people are out there are curious. And there's all these studies done about why we think that like things aren't changing because the people who don't change make the most noise. It gives the perception that the majority feels this way. It's not true. It's not true. There was a little case study done. There was I don't remember where, but it was like I think it was like Venezuela or something. There was a president there that wanted to hold power. And so he hired thousands of people to go on Twitter at the time and promote how amazing he was. Okay. In the meantime, everyone in the country was suffering greatly. But because that's what everybody saw, they presumed that everyone in the country felt the same way, that he was an amazing guy and that nothing was wrong. And so what do? They shut their mouths. Fear of speaking their truth because they're afraid of what? We're not in a police state. You guys know that? We're not in one. You know who's policing us? Ourselves. Who policed you during COVID? Did someone come to your house and tell you to put a mask on? Nope. Your friends and family did it. We don't need a police state. We are the police state. So they discovered this. They shut down these farms. And 85% of the country wanted him removed from power. 85%. All felt the same way. No one spoke up. And when the truth surfaced, he was taken out of power immediately. Take that into consideration. You think you're on your own. You think nobody feels this way. It's not true. Truth has an inordinate power to change what's happening, right? It's just a shift in conversation. It's a shift in how we feel. But like for that to happen, for you to speak your truth, what do you need? Stability. Today, we're concerned that if we speak our minds, we'll get squashed. We'll get canceled, we'll get removed, we'll lose our connection to people. So these are very real fears. These are terrifying things. Terrifying things. So what do we need? Stability. Yeah, we got to cultivate safety. Changes everything. Changes everything. Okay, I've gone on for way too long. I love you all. Have a beautiful week. I'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, dear one, for choosing to share a bit of your day with us. We value you greatly. And as a way to give back and help you to deepen these practices, we want to invite you to join our incredible community on Facebook. You can do so easily by going to joinoldsouls.com and ask for an invite. This is our private community where old souls and seekers are able to grow and share their journey with others. We hold exclusive weekly live streams, we answer your personal questions, and offer valuable insights that we won't be able to share here on the podcast. So again, just head to joinoldsouls.com and grab your invite today. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, please head to iTunes and leave us a review. It's the only way other people can find this show, so if it's making a difference in your life, please share the love. Until we meet again, have an amazing week, dear one.